Chapter 1. The Discovery. The sun was setting behind the dense trees of Blackwood Forest, casting long, eerie shadows over the landscape. Three friends, Sarah, Jake, and Emily, had ventured into the forest for a weekend camping trip, hoping to escape the chaos of city life. They stumbled upon a nearly forgotten trail that led to a hidden gem, Blackwood Lake. The lake was vast and still, its waters dark and foreboding. A thick mist clung to its surface, giving it an otherworldly appearance. Despite its eerie aura, the friends decided to set up camp by the shore, enchanted by the lake's mysterious beauty. As night fell, the friends gathered around the campfire, exchanging stories and laughter. Jake, always the adventurous one, suggested they explore the lake the next day. Little did they know, the lake held secrets far darker than they could ever imagine. Chapter 2. The Legend. That night, as they settled into their tents, Sarah heard a faint whispering carried by the wind. She brushed it off as her imagination and tried to sleep. But the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Unable to ignore it any longer, she sat up and listened. The whispers spoke of a legend, one that had been forgotten by time. Long ago, Blackwood Lake was the site of a thriving village. The villagers lived in harmony until a terrible curse befell them. A young woman, accused of witchcraft, was drowned in the lake by the superstitious villagers. With her dying breath, she cursed the lake and all who lived near it. Soon after, the village was consumed by the forest, and the lake was abandoned. Sarah shivered and glanced at her sleeping friends. She decided not to wake them, dismissing the story as a figment of her imagination. Chapter 3. The Exploration. The next morning, the friends rented a small rowboat and set out to explore Blackwood Lake. The mist had cleared, revealing an island in the center of the lake that they hadn't noticed before. Curiosity piqued, they rowed towards it. As they approached the island, they noticed the remnants of ancient stone structures hidden beneath overgrown vines. They disembarked and explored the ruins, finding traces of the old village mentioned in Sarah's midnight tale. Despite the eerie atmosphere, they were fascinated by their discovery. In the center of the island, they found a large, decrepit stone well. Emily peered into it, seeing nothing but darkness. Suddenly, a cold, clammy hand shot out from the depths, grabbing her wrist. She screamed and pulled back, but the grip was too strong. Jake and Sarah rushed to help, pulling Emily free. As they did, they heard a haunting, disembodied voice echo from the well, cursing them for disturbing the resting place of the cursed woman. They fled back to their boat, hearts pounding, but not before Sarah noticed a strange, antique locket lying near the well. Chapter 4. The Haunting. That night, back at their campsite, strange things began to happen. The temperature dropped unnaturally, and the fire kept flickering out despite their efforts to keep it burning. Shadows danced around them, and they heard the same whispers Sarah had heard the night before. Emily was the first to succumb to the curse. She woke in a trance and walked towards the lake, murmuring words in an ancient, forgotten language. Sarah and Jake managed to stop her just as she was about to enter the water, but her eyes were vacant, and she seemed lost in a nightmare. Desperate to end the haunting, Sarah examined the locket she had found. Inside was a faded portrait of a young woman, the same woman from the legend. The locket seemed to pulse with a life of its own, growing colder the longer she held it. Chapter 5. The Confrontation. Realizing they needed to return the locket to its rightful place, the friends decided to go back to the island. Emily, now weak and feverish, stayed behind in the tent. Sarah and Jake rowed through the misty waters, the air thick with tension. When they reached the island, they hurried to the well and dropped the locket back into its depths. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the ground began to shake, and an ethereal figure emerged from the well, the spirit of the cursed woman. Her ghostly form hovered above the well, eyes filled with sorrow and rage. "You have disturbed my rest," she whispered, her voice echoing through the forest. "But you have also brought me the key to my freedom." Sarah and Jake watched in awe as the spirit's form began to dissipate. The curse finally lifted. As she vanished, she uttered a final warning. The lake will always remember. Chapter 6: The Aftermath. Returning to the campsite, Sarah and Jake found Emily awake and alert, the fever gone. The haunting presence had lifted, and the air felt lighter. They packed up their belongings, eager to leave Blackwood Lake behind. As they left the forest, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The whispers had ceased, but the memory of the cursed woman and her tragic fate lingered in their minds. Years later, Sarah would often think back to that fateful trip. She had moved far away from the city, but the memory of Blackwood Lake never faded. Every now and then, she would hear a faint whisper on the wind, a reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. And somewhere, deep in the heart of Blackwood Forest, the waters of the lake remained as dark and mysterious as ever, holding secrets that no one would ever fully uncover.